Hello Indie Game fans, it's the middle of December and yet games are still coming out, with a number of 1.0 and early access releases of interest, but let's begin with HunterX codenamed T, coming to us from the same developer of HunterX, which is a weird but interesting Metroidvania, with this looking to have a similar visual style but with a different main character. It looks to retain much of the action and has some interesting looking bosses, so Metroidvania fans, give this one a go.
How do you like the house I found for you? Beautiful, isn't it?
The first-person simulator House Flipper was insanely popular, so it's no wonder that the developers went ahead to make a sequel in which you're still purchasing dilapidated and run-down houses and then doing the renovations yourself in hopes of flipping it for profit. It has the same satisfying and perhaps zen kind of gameplay in which you're placing down tiles one by one or cleaning up dirt and gunk with what appears to be updated visuals and looks kind of nice. Yes, United 1944 is yet another World War II multiplayer shooter, but games like Isonzo have proved that it can work on an indie scale, where this game seems to have been quite popular during their server tests and such.
Everyone's giving their best. But it's hell out here. We must hold our ground. We must breach their defenses. United, we will make history.
Interestingly, this is urban warfare in cities, so don't expect to see tanks or vehicles in this, which, honestly, is something that I prefer in shooters, since vehicles, especially jets, does kind of screw up the balance, but as with all multiplayer titles, player population will be a concern. Hey, if you made it this far, subscribe to my weekly newsletter to keep on top of all things indie games, link in the description below. Here's quite the interesting action roguelite in Schism, one that, thankfully, is not another Vampire Survivors clone, but rather harkens back to Isaac or Star of Providence in being limited to rooms and arenas. Additionally, it also has Bullet Hell elements, which reverses the Bullet Heaven trend, in which enemy projectiles can damage you, but it adds in the frequency or color switching mechanics from titles like Ikaruga into what looks like an intense experience. An impressive looking roguelite first-person shooter is Soulslinger Envoy of Death, where you play as a slain gunslinger who is fighting against the cartel in the afterlife. Your enemies are attempting to harvest enough souls so that they can break free from the afterlife, which you of course need to stop, with it having a good look similar to titles like Metal Hellsinger, only without the rhythm element and is more of a classic shooter. Surprise! Dave the Diver has now been firmly established as not indie, so it is in this category, with it announcing a surprise crossover with the cosmic horror fishing title DREDGE at the Game Awards, which brings these mutant aberrations to the fishing RPG and should make it even better. Palia had a surprise announcement during the Game Awards as well that it will be playable on Switch this week, in which there's certainly a lot of hype behind this cozy MMO, but there might be something more sinister lurking under the surface. You're farming, fishing and cooking with your friends in a whimsical world, with more than a number of cozy game YouTubers falling head over heels for this game, but apparently it will be a free-to-play game with microtransactions, so it might have the potential to go very bad. From the creator of The Settlers comes Pioneers of Pagonia, a Settlers-like city building title that looks nice and seems like a throwback, where it seems like we're in a nostalgia phase for these 90s properties, such as with Stormgate and StarCraft/Warcraft as well. Developer and publisher Slytherin specializes in strategy titles, somehow getting a hold of the Stargate SG-1 IP and making Stargate Timekeepers a real-time tactics title that looks impressive, where given their track record, is a title of interest.
There are three kinds of beings: the living, the dead, and the pirates.
French developer Shiro Games is firing on all cylinders, with this tactical RPG Wartales being impressive, and they are following the same model that brought them so much success with Northgard in releasing paid DLCs, with the first expansion being Pirates of Belerion, adding a new region with pirates and 25 plus hours of new content.
The blood of our swords. We take what is ours. We take Belerion.
Smaller games begin with Bahnsen Knights, a horror visual novel that has a throwback pixel art look which this developer has faithfully stuck to and does look kind of unique.
Stay away from me!
Call of Myth is a collectible card game based on Lovecraftian horror and looks interesting for a free-to-play title.
Imagine what I got through.
I did everything I could.
Oh no, again!
Those creatures, are they real? Who knew that it was useful?
Just look at this!
Is that all you can do? Let me see. Maybe this.
The developer of Diceheart did reach out to me, so I wanted to help them out, with this being a turn-based roguelite with a focus on rolling dice, and while it doesn't look the most amazing, might have interesting ideas. DreadMoon is a first-person shooter in which you play as a werewolf hunting vampires, so what's not to love? I believe I covered Emplacement during one of those Steam Mix festivals, in which this is a turn-based strategy title combined with a city builder, in which you have to kill your opponent's king to win. The Steam release of Familiars.io is of interest, since in the long-running tradition of .io games, this is actually playable in browser, and I have heard good things, being a Pokemon-like monster taming RPG, but is an MMO, having an interesting visual style as well. Speaking of monster tamers, you can search for upcoming games like Pokemon on my channel and find videos with Final Stardust in it, where it was initially a Pokemon-style RPG, but through development, apparently has turned into a card battler subtitled Cosmic Nexus, in which you are still summoning monsters to battle enemies, but has more of a CCG presentation and could be interesting.
MACHO Spinner!
MACHO Spinner is just a weird game that can only happen in indie games, being a Beyblade battler-like title but with topless muscle man on top and is for the lols. I wasn't too impressed with the starting seconds of this trailer for Manitas Kitchen, but then it went into the kitchen portion, which looks great, being a casual cooking game with mini-games and a narrative all about a dinosaur that wants to become the best pizza maker. One-Armed Robber is a free-to-play first-person heist game, think Payday for example, in which you only have one arm, but it did spark the question in my mind that, at least in games, it doesn't really matter, since even if the character has two arms like in Counter-Strike for example, you're only doing one action at any one time in video games anyway. the 1.0 release of Trinity Fusion is of note, a stylish cyberpunk roguelike platformer that is perfectly serviceable, but perhaps lacks that spark to give it broad appeal.
We've lost control of the multiverse that we created. And now the only way to save ourselves is to destroy it.
From the red deserts to the emerald rainforests, these lands are home to some of the world's most unique and vibrant birds.
The digital adaptation of a tabletop card game, Wingspan, is great, so the Oceania expansion is of interest, adding even more stuff to the game.
These incredible species. Gather the delicious nectar and discover new bird abilities that will enrich your strategic adventure of creating a top-scoring wildlife preserve. Experience the untamed beauty of Oceania and let the stars of the southern skies guide you in Wingspan.
The top 5 begins with Commaggio Remilia 2 Stranger's Requiem, a classic Vania-style action platformer based on characters from the Toho project, in which you play as Sakuya, the knife-throwing, time-stopping maid character that was also the protagonist in Toho Lunar Night, in which the first Commaggio Remilia game had Metroidvania-ish elements but was more linear. Your character could fly, for example, which allowed you to bypass some of the platforming, with this looking fairly impressive as well. According to a press release, I believe this will only be out on Switch this week, with some issues preventing the Steam version from releasing, so personally, I'll be waiting a little on this. One of the most impressive titles from a technically independent developer is Ready or Not, an intense, tactical first-person shooter in which you play as members of a SWAT team called into dangerous situations. Amazingly, through early access, this has over 100,000 Steam reviews, which translates to a massive number of copies sold, which by rule of thumb estimation might be as many as 5 million copies, and at $40 a pop means serious cash for this developer. It releases in 1.0 this week and looks like a modern successor to the SWAT and old school Rainbow Six games, and is of note because of that. If you're an indie developer and have no idea how to start with marketing your game, get on my mailing list via the link in the description below, where I'll send you some free templates and guides soon. Tencent-owned and not indie developer Clay Entertainment has spun up a publishing arm, with one title under their banner being Mind Over Magic, a magic school management sim in which you're growing and expanding the academy in order to build up enough strength and resources to delve underground to explore. There is certainly an appetite for games like this, as seen by the popularity of Hogwarts Legacy and Spellcaster University, so this should do well, with the turn-based RPG combat looking fun as well. I previewed Dyson Sphere program when covering the upcoming releases of the month, so I won't dwell on it too much, but this is a factory builder title that spans an entire solar system, so how's that for going big? Yes, it is a similar kind of experience to Factorial, but only instead of building a rocket to escape, you are attempting to harness the power of the sun, with it having the same kind of compelling gameplay loop that has already amazed in early access, with the 1.0 release being the cherry on top. Of course, the Metroidvania title Cookie Cutter shows up here, being a gorgeously animated, gory action title with attitude about an android searching for her creator, although it might stray into the too edgy for being edgy territory, with more of the best Metroidvanias in this video.